You're listening to The Echoes with me, Emily Andrew, the self-development podcast that explores personal stories, powerful tools, and an insight into the wide world of mental, physical, and spiritual health. Get ready to get curious, be inspired, and connect in. Welcome back to another episode of The Echoes. This one's a little bit late if you are listening in real time, and I have no other reason apart from the fact that it just didn't feel quite aligned for me to record. I felt like it would have been a forced process, and I'm not about that kind of living at the moment. I don't know about you, but at the end of the year I get really reflective on what this year has had, and I feel like for most of this year I have ended up asking myself where the days have gone, where the months have gone. It feels like there's never enough time in the day to get what I need done, and I thought that it would be a really great way to finish off the end of this year by just speaking my truth, checking in, and giving you guys an update of where I'm at and what you can expect to see with my work in the future. So I'm not planning to go anywhere with this podcast in terms of having a break or anything like that. But what I do want to make sure of is that I am coming on to share things that I think are important and things that I think are going to help people in their own self-discovery, self-growth, whatever it is, self-understanding, just reconnection, I guess. So I'm not here to just pay lip service for lip service's sake. I'm not going to be putting out episodes just because it's a Tuesday and that's the time I should put out an episode because it sounds good. I have ideas and I have plans, but I have to really acknowledge myself as a person and my energy. And this year has been such a lesson of understanding myself, which feels impossible when there has been so much self-discovery in the last 10 years. How can I possibly understand? How is there more to learn? Like, surely we just know ourselves and we learn our triggers and we learn our, our strengths and weaknesses. And that's that. But I think over this year, I've understood that there is further layers and also questioned the ideas of, are these actually my limits? Do I want to keep these, triggers in place? Or am I going to do something about it and see if I can change it and see if I can shape my future? And it's been a really wonderful journey of understanding and discovering. There's been a few methods or things, tools, formats that I've explored this year that have been really enlightening. And I want to briefly share them with you. I'm not going to go into detail about them because I don't consider myself an expert, and hopefully I can get people on to share these tools with you if you haven't come across them before. But they are just a beautiful way of really understanding yourself as a person, understanding your energy type, understanding how people perceive you, your conscious, your unconscious traits, characteristics, your gifts, your purpose, all of these things that I find absolutely fascinating. And one of these modalities is called human design, and I may have mentioned it briefly. Sorry, I'm just moving. I may have mentioned it briefly on the podcast before, but human design is a fascinating system that combines lots of different things. It's got astrology, the I Ching, the 60, there's something with 64, I can't remember. I told you I'm not an expert. But it combines things together and it creates a kind of a chart of yourself, and it splits you up into different profiles, different energy, different energy types. And it also can really go deep into your makeup. So there are 5 different profiles there, or types, I should say. There are projectors, generators, manifestors, manifesting generators, and reflectors. And projectors, I'm a projector. Generators, I think generators and manifesting generators are quite common. I think they make up the most part. I could be wrong. I feel like I'm wrong in that, but you've got that they're more common. One of the really rare types is reflectors, and they're really interesting people. I only know one reflector in my life, and she's fascinating and brilliant and wonderful. But I'm a projector, and one of the key things about projectors is that we don't have consistent energy. We're not made up of, we don't have this life force energy in our chart. So we have to really work on nurturing our energy and doing things that build us up. And it gave me a lot of validation of why I never really enjoyed working 9 to 5. I could do it. I was quite successful when I was working for like corporate and that kind of thing, but it just exhausted me mentally, physically, emotionally. And I had a human design reading earlier in the year, right back at the start of the year, actually, with these 2 women who run Day Luna, which I would definitely recommend if you are interested in learning more about human design. But it was such a validating experience, and it was incredible. And it was just such a fascinating way of understanding yourself better, understanding how you best make decisions, how you kind of can act and respond. And there's a lot of frustrating factors in it, because we live in a world where we're designed to push, where we're designed to make things happen, where we're designed to work like, 9 to 5, and we'll usually have extra bits on the side. And for some people, they have that energy to sustain that kind of lifestyle. I do not. So I've been trying to honor that a lot more this year, and understanding myself through that lens has been such an eye-opening and wonderful experience, which maybe I will share more if people are interested in hearing more. But I will definitely look at getting an expert on to really discuss the benefits of human design. The most recent thing that I did as well, which I actually got into because of the podcast, the Day Luna podcast, was talking about, they had somebody on called Josh Siegel, who is a numerologist. He's one of the best numerologists, I think, in the world. He is absolutely fascinating. I booked a reading with him for my Christmas present, and I had it a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still reeling from it. I don't know much about numerology, so I'm not even going to try and attempt to give you an overview, really. All I know is that we have like a set of numbers, and that's just decided, I think, mostly by when we were born. Perhaps our name has something to do with it, the name we're given and the place. I don't know if that is a factor, but I think for this reading, I just had to give him my birth name and my date of birth. But the accuracy of this man for this reading was insane. He spoke a lot about, he explains the types. He doesn't ask you lots of questions about yourself. He explains, some of the numbers, what this could mean for you. And then he does an exploration, if you like, of your chart, and like the numbers, picks out years that might be significant. And he said, first off, I think he was a bit annoyed because I'd emailed him from my work email, which tells him what I do. And he was like, I don't normally know that. And I was like, sorry. But I think, I'm not sure exactly what the root of my numbers are, but I had 6 and 7 in my life path, which I think is your lessons, and it turns into your purpose. And he talked about 6 a lot, being healing, helping. 7 has a slight spiritual essence to it. But 6 and 7, that's very much like helping, healing. So he was like, you're in the right ballpark. But the thing with you is that you have a 3 in your chart, and 3 is all about creativity and art, and you need to fully integrate that. And it's a real interesting thing, because obviously when I was growing up, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be on the West End. And that was the route I went down until I ended up having to leave it because of my mental health and my physical health, getting to a really low point. And I absolutely adore the work that I do and the route that kind of redirect has taken me. But in the last year, I've been missing that side of myself, of that creative, singing, performing element. And I think what really made me realize it this year was being on stage, and presenting EFT workshops to people, because I just feel at home. I love interacting with people in that way, and it's something I really want to start to lean into more, because it feels like it brings some of that, that element. Obviously, I'm not standing on stage and singing at people or pretending to be somebody else. I am being me and presenting something that I'm very passionate about. But it just still had that element, which I felt very at home in. And he was talking about, you need to bring this back into your chart, blah, 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 but we'll have a look into it. And he immediately said to me, looking at the patterns, he said, I'm going to pick out a couple of years, and there might be something significant in that year. It might be a bit less insignificant, like less obvious, but these are kind of the lessons you're here to learn, and blah, blah, blah. And he said the first year that he picked out was 2012. And I was like, yeah, that was quite a big year, because I had got into Mount View. I was going to be starting Mount View in September of 2012. I'd lost my nan to bone cancer, and that was just awful. And to put it very simply, I think if you listen to last week's episode with Liz, and she kind of spoke about seeing me at university, that was quite an interesting insight, because obviously I don't really remember that much around that time, but it was a devastating loss. And I found a letter that I'd written around that time, and I remember explaining or describing this grief as this hole. Like, it was as if this black hole had opened up inside me, and I just never ever thought that I would ever feel okay again. And so there was a lot of grief going on there. But I actually ended up, before I could finish my foundation second year, collapsing in rehearsals and having what I now know was a panic attack. But because I had such low potassium because of my eating disorder, it portrayed itself as kind of like almost like a heart attack, because my organs had started to spasm, shut down, that kind of thing. And I was carted off to day treatment. So I went to day treatment. I managed to get well enough to be discharged, kind of went through that. I got well enough to go to drama school for that September coming up, and finish my university foundation separately to my my cohort once I was out and better. But because I was on quite a lot of antidepressant medication, I'm very aware I'm saying a lot. Sorry. I was on a lot of antidepressant medication, and essentially what happened was that I couldn't stay awake. I was having night sweats. The doctor said it was nothing to do with the medication, but it's interesting because since giving up drinking in 2019, and stopping that medication, I actually no longer have that. So that was an interesting point. But I digress. I ended up not being able to sleep. I was definitely using alcohol as a coping mechanism because although I was managing to eat and I was, doing everything that I thought was right, physically I wasn't there yet. And, I talk about it in my book, I ended up essentially having to leave very early into my dream course, which then just spiraled my life because I personally just didn't think I had any reason to be anymore because my dream being an actress was over. So I didn't really tell him loads of detail, but I gave him the Sparks notes. Obviously, I can go much more into detail, but I will not bore you with my life story on this podcast. And he was like, "Wow, pretty much a wake up call then." It's like, yeah, just a little bit. And it was just fascinating that was the year that he picked out of all of the years of my life. And obviously, there's other things that have happened in other years, but that was such a poignant year for me. And we looked at the lessons that came out of that and the understanding and how that had changed. And it was fascinating. And what I absolutely adored about this man was that he is it's like he shakes you. He physically shakes you out of complacency and tells you what the fuck to do. And he swears and he walks around when he's doing this reading because he's just got all this knowledge in his head, and it's fascinating. And yeah, it was one of the best experiences of this year for me because he gave me a plan of action to understand, right, now you need to, you're on your way, you're in the right area, but for you personally to really integrate, you need to bring some of this creativity back into your life. And I have no idea what that looks like right now for me. I'm currently undergoing going through the book The Artist's Way, which he specifically said to me, you have to go and read The Artist's Way. He was like, go and read The Artist's Way. And I said, you're probably like the fourth person that said to me to look at this book, which I think I downloaded a few years ago, but I never touched. And I said, okay, I'll have a look at it, thinking at some point I will. I've got a lot to do, which I will explain why in a minute, but I have a lot to do. And I went to go and see my grandpa a couple of days later because I teach him Pilates. And he wanted to give me a Christmas present. We went up into his office and sat on the table was The Artist's Way. And I just gasped out loud. And that wasn't my present. He was going to give me something else, but I just went, I have to read this book. I've been told to read this book. I need to do this. And he gifted it to me, and I did try and say don't because it was a gift to you, but he wrote to Emily Love Grampy in it, and I'm gonna keep it forever because he's very special to me. And I just saw it as a sign of, okay, I've got to do this book, which is a lot of work. There's a lot to do, but we're doing it. We are doing it. So those have been some of the ways that I've further met myself this year. And I think that that's something that really needs to be said out loud, because I think a lot of the time when you do a lot of personal development work, or you understand yourself. You get to a point sometimes and you think, is this it? Is this it? Is this where I'm at? Is this, as far as I'm going to get to understanding myself? Or I think sometimes as well, when we see coaches online or, people in public eye or whatever it is, there's a certain element of us that goes, oh, they must have it all figured out. But I think that the key message is that when we really commit to ourselves, we will always be on a learning, developing journey. Some people hate the word journey, but I really don't know how else to describe it, because we are always going to be seeking to understand more, to understand how we can give out more, to give to ourselves more. And I think that to get to a point where you understand yourself enough to understand what triggers you and understand why you've been hurt and why you are the way you are, but then you just leave it at that, I think that we are limiting ourselves unnecessarily. And, there are moments in our lives where we might do a lot of work and then we'll just kind of stay for a while. But there always life is always changing. Life is always growing. It's going to be the way. So we can either, try and stop the world and fight against the change, or we can embrace it and develop with it. And I think that it's a really interesting question to ask ourselves of how am I going to navigate this? Am I going to embrace it, or am I going to resist it? And what part of me wants to resist this? Is this because of fear? Is this because I'm not sure if I'm equipped? What can I do that's going to support me in this? And whether that is talking to a friend, whether that is talking to a family member, getting a coach, working with a therapist, doing something that supports you in that is always going to be beneficial. You are going to get much more out of that hour of your life than you are going and shopping for an hour. So if you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen that, or you may not have, because I haven't been that active on it, to be honest. Again, just trying to embrace the inconsistency and not getting bogged down in that you need to post every single day. I have recently started training to be a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist, CBT hypnotherapist. I have had my eye on it for a long time, and the time just felt really right when I signed up in November. And I'm really excited to be able to learn even more skills to be able to support the people that I work with. I find that EFT is such a wonderful method, and the work that I do with clients is so transformative that sometimes I think, well, I don't need anything else. But I think to believe that, to really sit with that, I think that doesn't do myself and the people that I work with enough. I think there always needs to be a certain level of understanding and growth and different skills when you are in this field. And for me, EFT itself is not considered a therapy at the moment. You are not an EFT therapist when you do EFT when you do the course. And I think there's a lot of people out there that do the course and then think that they have the ability to, say that they were working at Tesco's and they do an EFT course, and then because of the way that some of the wording and some of the training is, you leave almost thinking that you can deal with supporting people going through that kind of, going through trauma, which unless you do additional work, you absolutely should not be. I think that there is a real need for us to ensure that people working in this field especially have got that ethical mindset of where are my limits. It isn't I'm just going to be able to work with anybody on anything, because I think with the conversations especially that we've had on the podcast with Julie and working with other coaches, it's really important to ensure that we are doing the best. And EFT isn't my only qualification, but I really think that having something really strong and solid that will place me as a therapist is going to be such an exciting next step and next venture. Hypnotherapy and EFT work really well together. And I'm really interested to see how I myself am going to look at merging the two together, whether that be using EFT to help to allow the body to release and bringing hypnotherapy in as a way to create more positive suggestions moving forwards. I don't know. That's the exciting part for me of bringing in something new. So you might start hearing me talking about different things, not just EFT. At this point, I still very much am in EFT, and I think I always will be. I think it's an absolutely incredible modality, and I hopefully one day will be able to get to a point where I'm training others, because I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so passionate about it being done properly and being used correctly, and that is something that I'm really, really passionate about. I don't think that will be a 2024 thing, but you never know. And it's just very exciting to going into 2024 with this new path and this new focus. And I can't wait to bring you into this as well, and give you all the things that I'm learning and share with you these new ways of supporting you. I don't know if this episode is going to be considered very dull, but I just felt like I wanted to get on and just really share my heart and where I'm at the moment. I think that trying to create for the sake of creating is actually more of a block for me personally. The get on and just do it attitude doesn't really work for me. I have to feel moved to do something, to say something, and hopefully, because I've come from this place, some of the information in this podcast might be interesting to listen to. We will get back to normal service, and I will bring you more episodes on specific topics, but I just wanted to do a check-in and chat, if you like. So if you have got to this point and you've listened and you're here, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for, tuning in and contributing to the echoes and keeping it going by being a listener. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've got any questions for me, if you want to know more about human design, I would definitely recommend going to De Luna. There are also other places out there online. De Luna for me is the best that I have found, probably because they're two projectors as well. So being able to understand from a projector is absolute. Projectors are like guides, essentially. So I find it really, really useful. They've got a wonderful podcast and loads of information on their website. I am just fascinated. I've started bringing human design in with my client work, and I just to understand, the basics. I don't do full readings, but just understanding the basics of how we are and how we work and how we're designed to live, really. I'm like I said to Jenny, who runs the Wild Times, yesterday, that I'm a bit like Dexter, not my dog Dexter, but the the serial killer, the TV show, because he keeps blood slides. Well, I seem to be collecting and amassing everybody's human design charts, my friends, my family. I'm just so into understanding and learning more about it. The only difference between myself and Dexter is that I don't murder the people that I have their charts for. So, you can be safe in the knowledge that I am not a righteous serial killer. Do you ever say something and just think, shut up, Emily? If you're interested in looking at a numerology reading, I wouldn't recommend anybody else but Josh Siegel, because he is absolutely fascinating. He is a wonderful human being. He will shake you awake. And I think that in this self-development world, there is a lot of feminine energy, which I think is so needed, especially in the world today. We need more love and we need more compassion. But he also gives it, like, he also says it how it is. And for me, I love that delivery. He still cares. He still has that loving aspect to him. But he's very much like, I'm going to tell you what you need to fucking do. And I just think it's wonderful. So definitely go and see him. And if you're interested in working with me in the new year, whether you want to use EFT for food issues, for phobias, or just for general life stuff, if you feel like you're totally blocked on something, if you're stuck, if there is something that is just bothering you, and no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to stop a habit or a behavior from happening, then get in touch with me. We can have a chat. I can see how we can work together. And don't forget, I'm going to be continuing with the monthly tapping circles as well. So every month we get together online, hopefully going to bring in some in-person ones in Cheltenham as well for those of you that are interested, because I've had a few of you say that they would be. Just a really wonderful, beautiful space to be able to come together and just de-stress. Bring in what you want to bring in if there is something, or just be in a really beautiful environment. We're becoming more aware of the need to fill our cup. And, you can see people doing retreats now. You can see going to a sound bath, or, going to a yoga session. And EFT fits in so well in a group environment, because you can literally come in. You don't even have to leave your shit at the door. You can bring it into the circle. You can help to process it, and then you leave it in the room. You don't have to carry that with you anymore. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to be able to do. So I hope you have a wonderful week. I'm so glad you're here, and I will see you again soon.